She asked for a warm bed and time to figure things out. I gave her both. What she did next tore through our trust, our holiday, and nearly our future. I never saw it coming. I opened my home to my sister when she had nowhere else to go. I never imagined that decision would tear my family apart. What was meant to be a second chance turned into betrayal, heartbreak, and a moment that still haunts me every Christmas. It was late September when she showed up. Rain was coming down hard and I could barely see through the front door's peephole. But I knew that knock. It was slow, unsure, the kind of knock that doesn't expect a warm welcome. I opened the door and there she was, my sister, Megan. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her coat was too thin for the weather, her sneakers soaked through, and her eyes, they held something between desperation and shame. "Hey, Ryan," she said quietly, trying to smile. I didn't know where else to go. I hadn't seen her in nearly 2 years. Megan had always walked a difficult path: drugs, bad relationships, losing jobs, and I had learned to keep my distance. But family is family. That's what I always told my kids. I glanced back into the living room where the twins, Mia and Tyler, were building Lego castles. My wife, Claire, was in the kitchen finishing up dinner. Megan followed my gaze and stepped back. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I need a place to sleep for a few nights. Just until I figure things out." Her voice cracked and I saw tears forming. I hesitated. Claire and I had talked about this scenario before, what we'd do if Megan ever came knocking. But it was one thing to imagine it and another to see her standing there in the cold. I stepped aside and motioned her in. "Just a few days," I said. She nodded, whispering, "Thank you." That night, I gave her the guest room, the one we barely used except when my in-laws visited. I even found some extra blankets and a pair of old pajamas from when Claire's brother stayed over one Christmas. Megan looked grateful. She showered, ate quietly with us, and went to bed early. The kids were curious, of course. "Is Aunt Megan staying for Christmas?" Tyler asked later that night. "No, but," I said. "She's just visiting for a little while." At the time, I believed it. Over the next week, Megan settled in. She offered to help around the house, dishes, laundry, even driving the kids to school a couple of times when I was running late for work. Claire was skeptical, but I tried to believe this was her turning point. Everyone deserves a second chance, right? Then came the night I saw her in the garage. I had come home late from work and was heading out to grab something from my car when I noticed the garage light was on. Megan was in there, going through a few of the storage boxes. I asked what she was doing. "Oh, just looking for an extra jacket," she replied too quickly. I didn't push, but something about her tone stuck with me. That weekend I checked the garage again. I had a small fireproof box hidden behind the paint cans inside a cabinet only I ever touched. In it was $2,500, money I had slowly saved over the year, in cash for the kids' Christmas. Toys, trips, a new bike for Tyler. That stash represented so much more than cash. It was joy, surprise, and memory-making, everything I wanted for my children. The box was untouched. I let out a breath. Maybe I was being paranoid. But the feeling didn't go away. Something was off. Megan had started staying out longer during the day, always saying she was job hunting or meeting with a shelter coordinator. Her phone had cracks across the screen and she never answered calls in front of us. She was always either tired or on edge. Claire grew more uneasy by the day. "We can't keep doing this, Ryan," she told me one night. "She's your sister, but she's not the same person anymore." I knew she was right, but I needed proof before I could ask Megan to leave, proof that my gut wasn't just being overprotective. So I bought a small camera. Just one. I set it up in the garage facing the cabinet. I didn't tell Claire. I didn't feel good about it, but I had to be sure. What I saw a few days later changed everything. The footage was grainy but clear enough. I sat in the garage late one evening, phone in hand, scrubbing through the recordings from the tiny camera I had mounted discreetly near the ceiling. Part of me hoped it would show nothing, that I'd see a few spiders, maybe the kids sneaking in for an old basketball, anything but what I feared. But there she was. Megan. The timestamp read 2:13 a.m. 2 nights ago. She had crept into the garage barefoot, hoodie pulled up, holding her phone like a flashlight. I watched her scan the shelves, glance toward the camera, though she didn't seem to notice it, and head straight for the cabinet. I leaned closer to the screen, my heart pounding. She pulled open the door. At first, she hesitated, running her fingers over the edges like she was debating it. Then, with a small jerk of her hand, she pulled out the box, my fireproof lockbox, the one I kept hidden behind 2 cans of paint. She opened it. I froze. The way she looked inside, quickly and nervously, told me everything I needed to know. She reached in and grabbed the bundles of cash, flipping through them like she was counting before stuffing them into the front pocket of her hoodie. Then she put the box back, closed the cabinet, and slipped out just as quietly as she came in. I sat there in silence for a long time after the video ended. I didn't even realize I was gripping my phone so hard until my knuckles went white. She took it. She took the money I saved for my kids' Christmas. Every extra shift I worked, every dollar I set aside instead of spending on myself, all of it gone in less than 2 minutes. I wanted to storm into the house right then and confront her, but I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I went upstairs to check on Mia and Tyler. They were fast asleep, curled up beneath their superhero blankets, completely unaware that anything was wrong. I sat on the edge of their bed and just watched them breathe. That money wasn't just for toys. It was supposed to be magic. A tree full of presents. A trip to the mountains for Christmas Eve. A chance to show my kids that even when life is hard, joy is possible. And Megan took it like it meant nothing. The next morning, I acted like everything was normal. She was sitting at the kitchen table sipping coffee like she didn't have a care in the world. Claire was packing the kids' lunches, clearly still irritated that Megan hadn't offered to help with anything all week. Morning, Megan said with a soft smile. Morning, I replied, keeping my voice even. I wanted to scream. I wanted to slam the video down on the table and shout, "How could you do this to us?" But I didn't want to wake the kids and I didn't want to handle this without thinking. So I waited until after school drop-off. Claire was out running errands. Megan was watching TV in the living room. I walked in and turned it off. She looked up, surprised. "Hey, I was watching that. We need to talk," I said flatly. Her eyes narrowed. "Okay, what's up?" I took out my phone, opened the video and placed it in front of her. She stared at the screen. Watched herself sneak into the garage. Watched her own hands steal from the box. She didn't even deny it. Her face just dropped, pale, frozen. "Megan," I said, voice low, "why?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. I didn't think you'd notice. I was going to put it back. I just needed it for something urgent." "For what?" I asked. "I owed someone," she muttered. "I got into some trouble before I came here. I thought if I could just pay them off, I'd have a clean slate. I didn't mean to hurt anyone." My hands were shaking. "You didn't mean to hurt anyone?" "Megan, that was for my kids. That money was supposed to make this Christmas special. How could you take that from them?" Tears welled up in her eyes. "I didn't know what else to do, Ryan. You could have asked. I might have helped. But instead, you stole from your own family." She stood up, voice rising. "You think it's that simple? You think I wanted this?" "I don't care what you wanted," I snapped. "I'm calling the police." Her face twisted with panic. "No. Please, Ryan. Don't do that. I'll get the money back, I swear. Just give me time." "No. It's done." I pulled out my phone and began to dial. She didn't wait. Before I even hit the call button, she turned and ran out the door, down the front steps, and into the street. No coat. No shoes. Just gone. I stood there, frozen, holding the phone to my ear, listening to the dial tone. The silence after she ran out was deafening. I stood there by the open door for a long time, trying to wrap my head around what had just happened. The cold morning air crept into the house, but I didn't feel it. All I could think about was the empty box in the garage and how I was going to explain this to Claire. I shut the door slowly and locked it. The couch cushion where Megan had been sitting was still dented, her coffee mug half full, on the table. It felt like a ghost had just passed through the house, one that had left behind guilt, shame, and 1,000 questions. I sat down and stared at my phone, the number for the local police still on the screen. My thumb hovered over the call button. Did I really want to go through with this? She was my sister. We grew up sharing a bedroom, taking turns on the family bike, watching Saturday cartoons together. She was the first person I called when Dad died. And now I had footage of her stealing from my children. And she ran the second I confronted her. I lowered the phone. For now. Claire came back an hour later. She was carrying groceries and humming something under her breath. When she walked in and saw my face, her expression changed instantly. "What happened?" she asked, setting the bags down. I told her everything. I played the video. Explained how I'd noticed things didn't feel right. How I'd bought the camera. What I'd seen. How I confronted Megan. And how she ran the moment I mentioned the police. Claire didn't say anything for a while. She just leaned against the counter, arms folded, lips tight. Finally, she whispered, "You were right." I nodded slowly, my throat tight. "I wanted to believe she'd changed," I said. "I really did." "She hasn't," Claire said gently. "She's still the same Megan who left that rehab program early, who borrowed money from your mom and never paid her back, who missed every birthday the kids ever had." I ran my hands through my hair. I know. But I didn't think she'd go this far. Claire walked over and placed a hand on my shoulder. We'll figure it out. Maybe the money's gone, but we still have time before Christmas. We'll make it work. Her voice was steady, but I knew her well enough to see the hurt behind it. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I sat in the garage and stared at that empty box again. The camera was still recording. Still blinking. I took it down. I didn't sleep much that night. Every sound made me think Megan had come back. I kept imagining the front door creaking open, her footsteps on the stairs, a quiet knock at the bedroom door. But morning came and she was still gone. Over the next few days, I tried to get back to normal. I went to work, picked up the kids, helped Mia with her math homework, and watched Tyler glue popsicle sticks together to make a Christmas reindeer. But it wasn't the same. Not really. Every time I passed the guest room, I saw the unmade bed, the hoodie she left behind, the little signs that she had been there and that she'd left on her own terms. Claire kept her distance from the topic. I think she didn't want to push me. But the questions were piling up in my mind. Where did she go? Was she safe? Was she even sorry? A week later, I got my answer. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was heading out to pick up the twins from school when I saw it, a small envelope stuck in the screen door. No stamp. No return address. Just my name on the front, Ryan. I opened it on the porch. Inside was a note written in messy handwriting on a torn-out notebook page. I'm sorry. I messed up. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't mean to take from the kids. I'll try to make it right. I promise. Don't call the cops. Just give me time. Megan. No money. No explanation. Just the note. I folded it carefully and slid it into my jacket pocket. I stood there for a long time, staring out at the street, hoping maybe I'd see her somewhere nearby. But the sidewalk was empty. She was out there. Somewhere. And now I had a choice to make. Do I keep waiting? Do I call the police? Do I try to forgive her again? Christmas was 3 weeks away. The kids were already counting down the days, and I still hadn't replaced the money she stole. I went inside, sat at the table, and stared at the note again. And I made a decision. I must have read that note a dozen times. Maybe more. I kept pulling it out of my pocket like it was going to change, like maybe I missed a detail, some clue about where she was, or a sign that she meant what she said. I'll try to make it right. That line sat heavy in my chest. Try. Not I will. Not I'm bringing it back. Just try. And in that moment, I realized something I hadn't been willing to admit before. Megan's version of right didn't look anything like mine. That evening, after putting the twins to bed, I sat down with Claire at the kitchen table. She was scrolling through her laptop, looking at discounted bikes and clearance toys, doing her best to recreate the Christmas we'd planned. Hey, I said, sliding the note across the table. She picked it up, read it silently, and looked at me. When did you get this? Found it in the door. A few hours ago. Claire sighed and set the paper down. What do you want to do? That was the question, wasn't it? Part of me wanted to believe in her, in the version of Megan that used to braid Claire's hair at family BBQs or hold Mia when she was just a baby. The sister who once sang at our wedding. But those memories felt distant. Like echoes of someone who wasn't around anymore. She's had chances, Claire said gently. More than most people get. And she keeps throwing them away. I know, I said. But she's still my sister. And we're your family too. That hit me harder than I expected. Because she was right. Claire. The kids. They were here. Every day. They were my world, and Megan had put that world at risk. I made my decision the next morning. I called the police. I told them everything. The theft. The video. The note. They took my statement, copied the footage, and said they'd issue a report and attempt to locate her. It was surreal, giving my own sister's name to law enforcement. But I had to draw a line somewhere. And for me, that line was my kids. After the call, I felt sick, guilty, like I had betrayed her, even though she was the one who had stolen from us. But something changed in the days that followed. I started sleeping better. The tension in the house lifted. Claire smiled more. The kids laughed louder. And for the first time in weeks, we started talking about Christmas with excitement instead of anxiety. I picked up extra shifts where I could. Claire sold a few things online, old furniture, a stroller we no longer used. Friends from work pitched in with gift cards. My neighbor, Pete, even handed me an envelope with $100 inside and said, "For the twins, no questions." It wasn't the Christmas we originally planned. No ski trip, no new game consoles, but it was real, honest, built from people who cared and from sacrifices that came from love, not guilt. And then, just a few days before Christmas, I got a call. It was the local police. They found Megan. She had been picked up near a gas station on the edge of town, sleeping behind a dumpster. No ID, no shoes, just the hoodie she stole the money in. They asked if I wanted to press charges. The words caught in my throat. Do I? Do I really want to see my sister in jail on Christmas? But then I remembered Mia crying when we told her we might not be able to get the dollhouse she wanted. I remembered Tyler asking why we couldn't go to the snow this year. I remembered the camera footage, the broken trust, the silence, and I remembered Megan's face when she realized I had caught her. Not regretful, but cornered. Yes, I said quietly. I do. The officer paused. Understood. We'll move forward. After I hung up, I sat on the porch again. It was snowing lightly, the soft kind of snow that makes the world feel quiet and still. And I thought about how complicated family is. How loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you. How sometimes doing the right thing feels nothing like it should. Inside, Claire was wrapping presents. I heard the kids laughing in the other room. And for the first time in weeks, I felt like I had protected them. Not just from Megan, but from the part of myself that always thought love meant sacrifice, no matter the cost. But deep down, I still hoped, in some far corner of my heart, that Megan would find her way back. Not to my house, to herself. The house smelled like cinnamon and pine on Christmas morning. Claire had been up before dawn, baking cinnamon rolls from scratch, a tradition we'd started when the twins were 3. I came downstairs to find her already in the kitchen, flour on her sweatshirt, a peaceful look on her face. It was the first time in weeks that peace didn't feel forced. I poured us both coffee and sat at the counter. You okay? She asked, eyes scanning my face. I nodded slowly. I think so. The days since Megan had been picked up passed in a blur. The police let me know she wasn't being held in jail. Not yet. Anyway, she was in a temporary holding facility while they worked out the details of the case. She hadn't asked for a lawyer. Hadn't asked to speak to me either. I didn't tell the kids much. Just that Aunt Megan had to go away for a while, and we wouldn't be seeing her for Christmas. Mia seemed disappointed at first, but Claire quickly shifted the mood by handing her a small bag of glitter and asking if she'd help decorate the table. Kids bounce back faster than we do. The presents under the tree were modest, a few toys, books, clothes. Not what we'd originally saved for, but still more than enough to light up their faces when they tore through the wrapping paper. Tyler shrieked when he opened a used bike I'd found online and fixed up in the garage. Mia hugged her new art kit like it was made of gold. I stood back and watched, coffee in hand, heart full. It wasn't the Christmas we planned. It was better, because it was honest, real, quiet, and full of gratitude. But there was still a small ache inside me, one I couldn't ignore. After the kids were lost in their new toys and Claire went to call her parents, I stepped outside and took a walk around the block. The snow crunched beneath my boots. Christmas lights blinked gently on porches. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing old holiday music through an open window. I kept thinking about the last Christmas Megan spent with us. 5 years ago, before things really fell apart. She had helped Claire set the table, bought the kids matching pajamas, brought a pie she swore she made herself, though I found the store label in our trash later that night. Still, she tried. That year, at least. She laughed with the kids, sang along with carols, took selfies with me by the tree. I missed that version of her. The one who still had light behind her eyes. I didn't know when or if that person had disappeared completely. But it wasn't the woman who had stolen from her own brother in the middle of the night and disappeared without a word. Later that evening, after dinner and dessert and stories by the fire, I found myself in the garage again. The old fireproof box still sat in its cabinet, empty but locked. A reminder of what we'd lost and maybe what we gained. I grabbed my phone and opened the contacts list. I still had Megan's number. I stared at it for a long time, debated texting her. Just something small, maybe a Merry Christmas or a hope you're safe. But I didn't send anything. Not out of anger. Out of acceptance. Because love isn't always about reaching out. Sometimes it's about letting go. That night, as I lay in bed next to Claire, I whispered, "Do you think she'll be okay?" She was quiet for a moment. Then she reached over, took my hand, and said, "I don't know. But we will be." The days after Christmas slipped into that quiet in-between stretch, not quite the end of the year, but already filled with the feeling of starting over. Snow stuck around, layered in thick piles along the streets. Claire took the twins sledding, and I went back to work, trying to shake the weight that still pressed on my chest. But it was always there. Every now and then, I'd check my phone for messages. Not that I expected any. Megan hadn't reached out, and the police hadn't called either. I figured no news meant the system was moving slowly or that she had no interest in cooperating. Still, part of me waited. One morning, just after New Year's, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I was in the garage again. The place had become something like a reflection chamber for me, fixing up a drawer that had jammed in Claire's old dresser. "Hello?" I answered. "Ryan? This is Officer Gaines from the precinct downtown. Do you have a minute?" I wiped the sawdust off my hands. "Yeah, of course." He sighed, then got to the point. "Your sister Megan has been formally charged with petty theft. Based on your statement and the evidence you submitted, the case is moving ahead. She's been released under supervised conditions while awaiting a court date." "Released?" I asked, startled. "She qualified for pretrial diversion, nonviolent, first-time charge on record. She has a place to stay at a halfway house downtown and has been enrolled in a rehabilitation program. She also left something here for you." My voice caught. "Left something?" "A letter. We can hold it, or I can read it to you now if you prefer." I hesitated, then said, "Read it." There was a brief shuffle of paper on the other end. Then Officer Gaines read her words aloud, slow, careful, as though they meant something even to him. "Ryan, I know I broke something in our family that may never be fixed. I didn't come to your house planning to steal. I came because I thought, for once, you'd help me without a list of conditions. But when I saw the money, I panicked. I wasn't thinking like a sister. I was thinking like someone scared, desperate, and ashamed. That's not an excuse. I know that now. What I did to you, Claire, and the kids was wrong. I took your trust and crushed it. And no amount of sorry can undo that. I'm trying to stay clean now. It's not easy. I still think about using every day. But for once, I'm trying to face what I've done instead of running from it. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I wanted you to know. I do remember what it was like to be your sister. I just forgot how to act like it. Tell the twins I love them, even if they never want to see me again. Megan." The silence afterward felt heavier than I expected. "Would you like to come pick up the letter?" Officer Gaines asked gently. I cleared my throat. "Yes, I'd like that." After the call, I sat there in the garage, hands in my lap, staring at the tool bench but not really seeing anything. She remembered. Not just what she did, but who she was. Who we used to be. I didn't know what to do with that. That weekend, I drove down to the precinct. Claire didn't come. She supported the idea, but we both agreed it was something I needed to do alone. The officer handed me a plain white envelope, sealed with my name on the front in Megan's handwriting, familiar and shaky. I didn't open it until I got home. It was the same letter I'd heard over the phone. But seeing it in ink, on paper she had held, it hit differently. The words were real. Raw. And flawed, just like her. Claire sat beside me on the couch as I read. She didn't say much. Just put her hand on my knee and stayed quiet. "What do I do with this?" I finally asked. She thought for a second. "Whatever helps you heal." That night, I put the letter in the fireproof box. Not because I needed to protect it, but because it belonged with the things that mattered, the things that hurt and healed at the same time. Megan was out there, trying. I still didn't know if I could forgive her. But maybe forgiveness didn't have to come all at once. Maybe it could begin with a letter. By mid-January, the snow started to melt in patches. You could see the grass again, pale, flattened under the weight of winter, but alive. The kids were back in school, Claire had taken down the tree, and life was, in a strange way, beginning to feel normal again. But I wasn't. Megan's letter stayed in the fireproof box. I hadn't touched it since the night I tucked it away, but it stayed in the back of my mind like a song you can't quite shake. I found myself thinking about her at odd times, while brushing my teeth, while driving to work, while packing lunches for the twins. It wasn't anger anymore. It was something quieter, heavier, like standing in front of a door you don't know whether to knock on or just walk away from. One Friday night, Claire and I sat on the couch after the kids had gone to bed, the soft hum of the dishwasher in the background. "I've been thinking," I said. Claire looked over, waiting. "I want to see her." Claire didn't flinch. She just nodded slowly. "You sure?" "No, I admitted. But I think I need to. She took a breath. Then go. 2 days later, I drove to the halfway house listed on the police paperwork. It was tucked between 2 apartment buildings on a quiet street, the kind of place you wouldn't notice unless you were looking for it. The brick was chipped, the paint fading, but the lights were on. I went to the front desk and gave them her name. "She's here," the woman said. "Let me check if she wants to see you." I waited by the front window watching people come and go. Most of them looked tired. Some looked lost. Others carried that flicker in their eyes, like maybe they were finally trying to live differently. A few minutes later, the woman returned. "She's in the common room." My heart thudded in my chest. When I stepped in, I saw her right away. Megan was sitting on a faded couch, a mug in her hands, looking smaller than I remembered. Her hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and her eyes, for the first time in a long time, were clear. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey." I sat across from her. We didn't speak right away, just sat in that silence that only family can fill. Awkward, familiar, fragile. "You got the letter?" she finally asked. "I did." "Okay." She nodded and took a sip of whatever was in her mug. Tea maybe, or just warm water. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," she said. "I wasn't either." Another pause. "I'm sorry, Ryan. I know you've already heard it, but I need to say it to your face." "You did." "I mean it," she added quickly. "Not just for the money. For putting you in that position. For breaking whatever trust we had left." I looked at her, really looked at her. Her hands trembled slightly. Her sweatshirt had a hole in the sleeve. But her voice didn't shake. "Why now?" I asked. "Why try this time?" She shrugged. "Maybe because I finally have nothing left to lose. Or maybe because for the first time, I realized that losing you meant losing the last person who ever really believed in me." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to believe her. I did believe her, or at least I wanted to try. "I'm not ready to just let it go," I said. "But I don't want to carry it around anymore either." She nodded. "That's fair." We sat there for a long time. No shouting. No tears. Just 2 people who had been through too much, trying to figure out if anything could be salvaged. Eventually, I stood up. "I don't know what happens next," I said. "But I hope you keep trying." She looked up at me, eyes bright. "I will." As I turned to leave, she said something that stopped me at the door. "Ryan." "Yeah. Thank you for not shutting the door completely." I nodded. Then I walked back into the cold, unsure of what the future would bring, but certain that I had done the right thing by showing up. Because sometimes healing doesn't come in big moments. It comes in quiet conversations, old couches, and second chances. The last of the snow melted by February. Life, as it always does, kept moving. The kids had settled into their new routine. Claire had returned to her usual rhythm. And I was still sorting through the pieces. But something inside me had changed since that day at the halfway house. I hadn't seen Megan again. Not yet, anyway. But we'd texted once or twice. Short messages. Careful, like testing the strength of a rope that once snapped. She let me know she was still clean. Attending group meetings. Even found part-time work at a community kitchen near the shelter. I didn't tell the kids. Not because I didn't want to, but because I wasn't ready for them to ask questions I didn't know how to answer. Questions like, why did Aunt Megan take our Christmas? Or can she still come to my birthday party? Kids remember more than we think. But I wanted their memories to be soft-edged, not stained by betrayal. Still, I kept the door cracked. And then, in March, it arrived. A small box left at our doorstep with no return address. The handwriting on the label was hers. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a small wooden snow globe. A winter cabin, pine trees, fake snow drifting inside when you shook it. And taped to the bottom was an envelope. I opened it. "Ryan, I know I can't buy forgiveness. This isn't about making things even, it's just something I made in the workshop at the center. We're learning how to work with our hands again. How to build instead of destroy. I thought the kids might like it. Or maybe it's just for you, to remember that even when everything feels frozen, the snow eventually settles. Thank you for not hating me. Megan." I turned the globe over and watched the snow swirl inside. Claire stepped in from the kitchen and paused when she saw me standing there with the open box. She sent it, she asked softly. I nodded. She's trying, Claire said, more to herself than to me. Really trying. We placed the globe on the shelf in the living room right next to our framed photo from last Christmas. The one without Megan. The one where we're all smiling, but behind those smiles was the storm we just weathered. Now it was different. Forgiveness didn't arrive all at once. It came in pieces like carefully chosen words, quiet mornings, and hand-carved snow globes. A few weeks later, the kids asked about her. Will we see Aunt Megan soon? Mia asked one night before bed. I paused. Maybe, I said. She's working on some things. But she loves you very much. Even if she messed up? Tyler asked. I knelt down and looked them both in the eyes. Especially then. People who love you don't always get it right. But when they try to fix what they broke, that's love too. They seem to accept that. Kids are good at holding hope without needing all the details. Later, when I checked the fireproof box in the garage, I saw her letter still folded neatly inside. I thought about moving it. Maybe to my desk drawer. Somewhere closer. But then I left it there, in that same spot where she'd once taken something. Because now she had given something back. Not the money. Not the trip. But a piece of herself. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward. Not forgetting the past. Not erasing it. But building something new, brick by careful brick, until one day we wouldn't be standing in the ruins anymore. We'd be home.